Hello, everyone. My name is Zachary Ballard,
And I am Chris Vlamakis.
and this is the Apocalypticast, and we are going to be reviewing Captain Phillips.
Yes, keeping with our pirate theme within our last few podcasts, this one we decided we wanted to go with a modern day pirate, and it's actually based off of a true story
Mm-hmm.
that happened to the crew of the ship piloted by Captain Phillips
Mm-hmm.
in, I believe it was 2008.
Nine. I think it
Nine.
was 2009.
It's the 2000s. They were all blur. They're all the same.
It's all a fever dream right
Um,
now.
Yeah, and so like obviously, this was a huge transition compared to the other movie, the recent movies we like. The one we literally watched right before this was was Pirates Band of Misfits,
Yeah.
and it was just like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, it was definitely more serious one. If you've seen it, definitely recommend seeing it at least 5 times.
5 times.
No, but it's really really good.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I watched it with Chris and Alina, so it's just us two today. So this podcast should be short and sweet. All right, so let's jump right in to theme. What do you think the theme is, Chris?
Um, I part of me thinks trying to think about it is because obviously like they couldn't necessarily slap 100% their own theme onto this because it's based off of fairly accurate retelling of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I think honestly, like if I were to put a theme onto it, something that seemed very prevalent even within the pirates, within Captain Phillips himself, is maybe conviction isn't the right word, but like sticking to what you know,
Mm.
like having that sort of rock solid foundation in what you know and what you believe in.
Okay.
And throughout like the whole movie, Phillips knows what he's doing. He obviously is a veteran in modern day sailing.
Yeah.
He knows all. He like as soon as he gets onto the ship, he's looking and nitpicking all these little
Yeah.
things. He knows every single uh, thing that needs to be done, and he knows all of the policies, all of the plans of action, just in case this stuff is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows exactly what's going to be doing. He also seems to be fairly well aware of what like the military standing and the military order of operations are. And so when he gets captured himself, well, would you consider him being captured as when the pirates first get onto the ship, or him being put into the lifeboat?
I mean, he was hostage the entire
Yeah.
time.
So as soon as the pirates show up, they're like, he very much is sticking to the plan, sticking to his
Mm-hmm.
guns, doing all this, trusting his crew to be able to stick to the plan, stick to the guns, and everything like that.
And they were very like on top of it. Like they were trying their best to like.
They were very and yeah, and then like obviously when they found opportunities to do things like with the broken bottle on the ground,
Yeah.
with the leader of Muse, which hopefully I'm not butchering that name, but when the leader was by himself and they all just ganged up on him, which was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a cathartic scene in
Yeah.
itself. But then I noticed it was only halfway through the movie, and I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, something else is gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know.
And then when Phillips gets onto when they're on the lifeboat, you then start to get a lot more insight for the pirates themselves. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
pirates themselves, obviously, they have their own beliefs, their own convictions, but obviously they are misguided.
Yeah.
Like they believe like, oh, they're going to have a huge payday, and especially when he talks about how they took a ship the week before and it was $6 million, and then Phillips is like, then why on earth are you here? It's like
because he has boss.
yeah, he has a boss. The boss was the one who got $6 million,
Mm-hmm.
but the boss has convinced him and made him believe that him getting ships and making the boss rich will make him rich.
Yeah. Well, like going along with that conversation,
Yeah,
like I think the theme is what you know,
yeah,
as well as what your circumstances are.
yes,
Like
yeah,
when he was like, "Why are you here?" He was like, and then later on, Captain Phillips was like, "Well, you 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 can choose to be something else other than a fisherman and a kidnapper.
Yeah.
And he was like, maybe in America, you know. It was like
That
I thought that line
yeah.
hit me because it was like, oh, this is like he's literally, and I love how they showed the scene before where these guys came in with guns and they were basically forcing them to go and
Yeah,
get a ship.
yeah, and they were offering them money and being like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, who wants to make some good money and doing all this, and then there was like a couple of them who even offered their own cut of pay just to have the opportunity to go on there.
Yeah,
Like it was definitely
that was their world.
almost like a fanatical type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, what I can compare that to, and I only have a little bit of knowledge of this, but there's a lot of like inner city gangs even within the United States that are like that. You're born
Mm-hmm.
and raised around that, and you are probably born and raised in a very shitty situation.
Yeah.
Like them, obviously, it looked like their houses were like ramshackled at best.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't seem like they have much of anything of interior. It looks like their houses had many people living in it, and obviously, they're like they were giving him the nickname throughout the whole movie of like skinny and everything like that. And sure, he was pretty scrawny, but not a single one of them were like even close to being
No.
like some of them were well toned, but
Yeah, but they were all skinny.
they were all like very little amount of body fat. So obviously,
And the Americans, they had a lot of body fat. They had a lot of body mass.
they did, yeah. Even like the physically fit ones,
Yeah,
obviously
they had more
their
body
muscle
mass.
mass.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something I actually wasn't thinking of. But thinking about that is along with the gangs, this happens all over the world where it's like somebody's in a down and out situation, and an organization, whether it be a gang, it could be a company, it could be a large organization such as this pirate group.
Mm-hmm.
They use these people and tell them, hey, I can help you out, and maybe and in some cases they do. In some
Mm-hmm.
cases, like, yeah, here's a wad of money. Here's like $10,000 for your work. It's like, good job, and it's like it's more money than they've seen in their entire lives. So obviously they come back for more and more, and possibly do more and more jobs for less and less or something like that, just for glory.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the circumstance thing, yeah. But like with their circumstances, I think that ties in because obviously, like, still really don't think that this is one cut and dry um, theme of this.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's literally just telling a story,
yeah.
but of course they put in, and even if that conversation wasn't there,
I think the most liberty they took with this movie has to have been when it was the before scenes, when it was just them as the pirates, because the only person they could have gotten from was him, the leader.
yeah, they could have gotten that story from him though.
It's a possibility, but like,
But he could have been lying too.
he could have been lying. He could have like, I don't want to necessarily like accuse somebody like that of lying, but they also could have been like, uh, who knows if they had access to him, because he's like, he was probably he was in like a maximum security prison in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So would the crew have been able to like the writers of the movie been able to go in and interview
It
him?
depends. I mean, it's a Tom Hanks film.
I don't know what it is. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. So
But yeah, I want to jump straight into, well, like the writing and story. I think it's interesting watching a thematic version of a real story that actually happened.
yeah.
And obviously, like, they dramatized it and stuff. I kind of wanted, so I looked up after watching the movie when I came home, like the interviews with the crew, and the crew. There was one interview where like the crew was like, the movie portrayed him as a hero, but Captain Phillips wasn't a hero. Like, he literally brought us into danger. Like, he got emails basically saying that, like, you should go 600 miles off the coast, but he stayed right on track with like 250 miles
Interesting.
off the coast. And so, like, I find it interesting that, like, and then they presented it with him and he got like flustered and stuff. But he wanted to, it makes sense. I mean, like, he wanted to go faster.
Yeah.
He wanted to get the job done quickly, and he disregarded the emails basically telling him to go further out, to avoid the pirates. So it's interesting to me how the writing had dramatized this a bit. Well, like, and you even watch the recording from the U.S. Navy, and it's not as interesting as like the actual
Yeah,
movie, you know?
to be perfectly honest, when I was watching the movie, I wouldn't necessarily call him a hero even with watching the movie.
Yeah.
I would say that he is a guy who is very well trained and he knows what he should be doing and
Hmm.
what needs to be done. But I wouldn't necessarily say that he's a hero. Obviously, like um, he's deceiving the bad guy the entire time,
Yeah.
which I think can be misconstrued as like, oh look, he's doing something brave and heroic. But he's like, and yeah, he wanted to protect the life of his crew and everything like that. So I don't think he was necessarily a hero in the movie, but that is pretty interesting to see because like obviously, my question,
Well, obviously, even in the movie, he didn't get along with his crew, you know?
yeah, he
So,
it showed him butting heads with the crew early on
mhm.
in the movie, and I that I was wondering that while I was watching it whether or not, because there has to be constant surveillance reports of of like activity like that
Oh, yeah.
in that area, especially if it is very well known to have that sort of activity.
Hmm.
And so, for him to go in without any sort of idea was a little in question for me. And so,
Hmm.
looking at that, it's like okay, it makes sense that he got that. And
Or
honestly,
maybe he knew that he trusted in the ship and the system that they
maybe
had, and that they just like he was like, well, we don't really need to do this because we have hoses, we have ways to keep these pirates off.
yeah,
But but Muse is so smart. Like both Captain Phillips and Muse were
yeah,
perfect antagonists to each other. Like, cause like they were both incredibly smart
hmm
in what they were doing, and they knew what they were doing. Both of
yes,
them.
exactly, yeah.
They both had their jobs, and they did them well. So, and I do wonder if like I'm sure they were able to talk to him, like Muse in the prison. I'm
Possibly.
sure they contacted the prison and they were like, "Hey, Tom Hanks film. Uh,
They just drop his name.
let us come do it." And then they were like, "All right, Tom Hanks film. Okay, we're gonna meet Tom Hanks. He
They,
doesn't show
he
up."
doesn't show up. They're all dressed up in nice suits, and they're just like, "So
Yeah.
is Mr. Hanks here?" Mr. Hanks
Yeah.
isn't here. He's at home with his wife.
He's not gonna be here for another year till we write the movie. Yeah, but writing was solid.
Yeah, it was solid. They were able to obviously keep, because always in all these based on a true story films, there's
Mhm.
always some times where it's like, how much did the writers take liberty
Mhm.
um, with the source material? Because a lot of times real life isn't exciting. Like
Yeah.
if the movie was like longer and they tried to make it feel how long they were in that boat in
Well, they
that
were in
lifeboat,
there for like 5 days.
they were, yeah, it was days they were in there. But the movie, the way it was written and the way it was paced, made it so that okay, you got a sense, especially with like we can get with like acting and the physicality and everything like that.
Mhm.
But that made it that show that okay, a time lapse every time it cut back to them, it was hours later, maybe a
Mhm.
day or so later, and I think that was really good on the writing, and it made it feel like because I remember seeing this stuff on the news.
Mhm.
I remember because once we got partway through the movie, I was just like, I memories of it kept flashing back, and I knew basically how the movie was going to end. If I remembered correctly, I was like, yeah, they took out all the guys on the boat simultaneously with a sniper rifle,
Yeah.
and uh, that part was obviously the climax, the like most dramatic
Oh
part
yeah.
because it was just like okay, he's holding a gun to Captain Phillips' head, he's tied up and everything like that. They're only able to see one or two of them with a clear shot, and like they have to do it all at the same time,
Mhm. Otherwise, he's dead.
and that is a very real thing. But the Navy SEALs, um, they're trained to do crazy operations like that. They're trained to come in like it was just from the moment the SEALs came in, where they parachuted in complete darkness. with like fairly good precision,
Uh-huh.
to the fact that they were just like multiple snipers trained in relaying live to the commander whether or not they were green to go or red not to take them out, and then like um just like when it happened, that movie, the way it was like cathartic. It like really, there was a lot of points in this movie where it felt really good. Like a lot of things were satisfying in this movie.
Yeah.
It was very satisfying. Like even when like the pirates first got onto the ship, because that whole sequence of him like turning the boat back and forth to try to slam into them, of them
It's
fighting
so
with the
full of
wake,
tension. It
and
was
and
definitely
them with like
an action
shooting the
movie.
hoses. Yeah, that was an action element they were putting in into something that like the crew was unarmed. Captain Phillips, he probably doesn't have any, like it didn't, at least in the movie it didn't really show
Yeah.
him with any sort of
Well, I don't think
actual
they were
combat
allowed.
training.
Like they were talking about, they weren't allowed to have weapons.
Yeah.
You
I think
know.
it probably has something to do with like if they go from port to port for country to
Well,
country customs and they're not a military vessel.
yeah, exactly.
I think that's the reasoning. If they were a military
It's like
vessel,
international law.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so with that, they were using their weapons, quote unquote, to their advantage, and there were just a lot of points where I'm just like, oh man, that's awesome, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's like stuff that I have heard about, and I a couple of them I've caught a glimpse or two online and everything like that, but to see like basically a real time enactment of that, because that particular scene, like I don't know how, like that felt like a perfect type of dramatization of that exact thing, because
Mm-hmm.
they're chasing in real time, the ship is going in real time, and obviously, and you see it hitting the boat, and it's like obviously like one misstep and everybody on that boat will capsize.
Oh yeah.
But they're being stable, they're doing this, they're doing the whole ladder thing, and that that obviously was probably the very beginning of them just like, yeah, this is a good movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, like,
yeah.
even thinking about it, it probably took a lot longer for that small boat, to
Yeah.
catch up. But they really paced it out well. So they showed the story, but there was still
Yeah,
tension.
they do the cuts, and obviously like it shows them, it's just like, okay, they're a mile and a half out, they're a mile
Mm-hmm.
out, they're a mile out.
Yeah.
In the movie that might have been like 10-15 minutes, but in real life that might have been 40 minutes, an hour.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knows how much. But
'Cause
obviously
that was such a shitty boat. Like it was so
it,
bad.
it was, but like you also had to take in consideration like those large tanker ships like that,
Yeah.
they may move decently fast, but that much mass going through that much water can't go that quickly. And that smaller boat had dual engines on it, so it really is only a matter of like time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like those awful word math problems. If a small boat with two engines on it and a large boat with a ton of
But
cargo
what if the
on
ship
it.
was carrying 17 tons of water?
It's just they hired like math teachers to come solve like how long it would take for the boat to catch up. All right, anyway,
Okay.
story is solid. 10 out of 10 story. Um I want to go right into directing. I had a thought, and I mentioned it during the movie, where it made me wonder, like, because it was very continuous with like the sweat stains on his chest, and
Oh yeah.
like I wonder if they shot that the whole day,
Yeah,
because like
I think that some of those scenes, I think part of me thinks that like they may have tried shooting all the on the large boat scenes on the same day, because
mhm.
obviously, like, because like yeah, when you pointed that out, I was just like, oh, that is pretty interesting.
Well, maybe they did like the pre-hijacking one day
Yeah,
where they saw the pirates, and then the whole hijacking another
yeah,
day.
yeah, definitely.
Um.
Or over several days, and
Mhm.
like also it just like obviously there's people there to make sure that stuff
Yeah.
continuity
Yeah.
is kept, but like what like I can only imagine how much, like if they're doing the same exact scene in the same exact outfits and with like same relative humidity and temperature and everything like that, like with the sweat and everything, they probably he just sweat the same time every single
Mhm.
time, and like just was like, okay, and there's this like, well, we have Mr. Hank's shirt number 53 here. And it's like
Yeah.
they sell on eBay for $20,000.
I'm gonna look it up after this
Look it
podcast.
up to see if there's Captain Phillips blue shirt.
Blue shirt.
There's like 150 of them on
Yeah.
there.
They just keep reselling for more money. Like, look at these sweat stains.
This is
No.
pure Tom Hanks.
But pure Tom Hanks.
Pure Hank.
My mom would probably want one.
So-
She's in love with Tom Hanks and Harrison Ford. Anyway,
Of course.
yeah, those are the two like main like love him. Which they're good, but I really enjoyed the directing and even like just like and you mentioned this. This is a good streamline actually into cinematography, where like it was like a shaky cam.
Yeah, when the movie first began, I actually hated it.
Mhm.
I'm not a huge fan of shaky cams, and a lot of like action movies or pseudo action movies use that to like simulate. Oh, look at this! It's all over the place. But a lot of times it gives me, and I know quite a lot of other people, like a headache.
Yeah.
It makes it hard to concentrate on what the action is, and it almost makes it so that it not almost it's a lot of times takes away from it. And so the first few scenes where it's like he's in the car with his wife and it shows him walking on the boat doing his initial checkup and everything like that, and I saw it was kind of shaking, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going like this is going to take away from the movie. But the moment they got onto the sea, it was just like, okay, no,
Yeah.
it made it feel more like they were like it was a not like nautical adventure, or like almost in a
I
sense.
think they should have waited till they were on the boat.
I think so too. Yeah, I think there was so little of the movie where they weren't on the ocean, so like it wasn't that huge of a deal. But I don't know. It put me off at the very beginning, but once they got into the ocean, I was like, okay, this is better. And then once they got into like like the scene we keep talking about, like when the pirates are trying to board, and it was just like, oh man, going back and forth, up and down. I'm just like, oh my god,
What makes it feel uneasy?
I feel like I'm shaking in that pontoon boat or whatever the hell they had. So.
And like it's so cool because they had to film in such small spaces, like on the lifeboat when they showed shots of them like on the boat getting towards the main mothership.
The insides of like ships like that too aren't like spacious.
Yeah, it was probably like one guy in there holding a camera.
Those hallways are cramped. Like when it had all of those actors in the engine room, I can only imagine how like, and they even mentioned it, like how hot and humid that would be. Now,
but it made it feel so uncomfortable.
It made it
having it be that close.
Yeah,
you know?
and it was good kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, keep talking. I'm looking something up.
Yeah, and so that was only topped by the fact that you got onto this lifeboat, and obviously, well, like these lifeboats are meant for like to hold like 15, 20 people, like that. But if you look in the movie, they aren't spacious. The seats are cramped. Everything is cramped about it, and then like you add the tension of now there's these several armed men in there holding you hostage. Like you felt like you were in there hostage with Tom Hanks. And then there's the scene where they're just like trying to bash open the window because they don't want to have the hatch open because that was a large opening, but they need air, and it's just like, oh man, like claustrophobic.
Yeah. Well, I even just looked it up. They did not use CGI. They used actual boats.
Oh, like, really?
Yeah, they used actual boats on actual sea
to
film it. So like they were literally like crammed in the lifeboat filming it. Oh, wow. And I wonder if like the director was there, or like, because I think they just got a camera guy.
There had to have been a cameraman in there.
Yeah, well, yeah. or if I don't know, but I think that's crazy that like because there's so many people behind the scenes on set, and so it would have to be limited, and there's no socially distancing for this movie.
This was pre-COVID.
This is pre-COVID.
I know March seems like 33 years ago, but this was 2013 when this movie came out.
Yeah,
I believe.
No social distancing in this movie.
You could be sweaty and sick and be in the same room.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool, and just I thought, yeah, the shaky cam kind of bugged me, mainly because you pointed it out. I wasn't going to notice it, but then I noticed it at the beginning.
I tend to notice a lot of weird technical things more than other people.
Yeah, but
So.
I think that they should have waited till they were on the boat to do that.
Mhm.
But yeah, um, let's talk about acting for a minute.
Yeah, obviously, um, Tom Hanks is the leading man in this, and
Hmm.
Tom Hanks has a a storied career. Like if you look and like some of the biggest movies made in the last 30 years, Tom Hanks is the leading man or
Hmm.
close to the leading man in a lot of those movies, and I think he very much delivered. He uh, he very much is like he's always the kind of guy where it's like he always successfully plays a character where it's like you can relate and feel like this is a dude that I know kind of
Hmm.
character, and like that's kind of what Captain Phillips was. He was just a normal man who is a captain that goes out into international waters, but when he's home, he's just a normal dude.
Yeah.
He was able to show him be like dutiful, a little bit uptight, which was great for a person of his position.
Hmm.
But I think it really started to shine, obviously, when the tension started happening, when the pirates first showed themselves, and he was just like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, he like, oh man, just the, like the final like 20 minutes of the show of the movie. It was just, and I had previously I hadn't watched this movie before, and I had previously saw a clip of that, and it was somebody was pointing out how like a lot of people were saying that he accurately depicted a person who had just been through a traumatic, like who was having a
Yeah.
traumatic episode, going through shock.
Hmm.
Um, he at when like from the moment that he pushes the pirate off and he attempts to swim, but obviously he's so weak because he's dehydrated. He has no food. He probably has little to no sleep.
Yeah.
Um, he couldn't make it, and then he gets tied up. He gets beaten relentlessly,
Hmm.
and you can tell he's just like his Tom Hanks breathing, the way he was speaking, the like the panic in his voice, like
Yeah.
when he was screaming out to tell his wife, his family that he loves him. Like I was like emotional
Oh yeah.
while watching it. And I was just like, "Oh my god! I know how ends because like I remember seeing it in the news and everything,
Hmm.
but holy shit! Like he did
Yeah.
that, and then it didn't stop there because he was blindfolded and tied,
Uh.
and then can you imagine being in that scenario and then you hear like a to him it probably sounded like one noise
Yeah.
and then a couple of thuds of bodies and then but like one noise and a splatter of something liquid on his face,
Yeah. Warm liquid.
and he's just like ah ah and I like we're laughing about it now and he's like ah and it's just like what the fuck
Yeah.
and then it shows, and this is an aspect a lot of movies don't show,
Hmm.
is it shows him going onto the Navy ship and immediately like they're not debriefing him or anything like that. They're like get him to the fucking medical bay,
Yeah.
get him to the like and this woman she's being gentle, professional, and to the point, like
Hmm.
what she's supposed to be doing, and just asking him questions, and he like is struggling because the adrenaline is finally
The
disappearing.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
he was on adrenaline for 5 days straight.
yeah,
You know.
the adrenaline was like that. He's just like, and he could barely speak. He could
Hmm.
barely remember what even just happened,
Yeah.
and and the interesting thing to me was like she just kept going. She like cut his shirt off, and he didn't even look like he noticed.
Yeah.
Like that was just like he was such in shock. They like he could have been like they could have been giving him shots or doing anything, and he probably wouldn't have noticed because he was. And when he
Yeah.
finally starts breaking down and crying, I was just like, "You beautiful bastard!"
Yeah. He's
Tom,
so
Tom Hanks
good.
did a phenomenal job in that because like he's still fighting. His brain and his body is still fighting
Yeah.
at that moment, and probably was fighting for days, weeks
Hmm.
after that, trying to process, holy shit, what just happened to me?
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, and then like the first few words he said, he's able to get out. He asked if his family knows, is he's okay, and they're like, yeah, they have been notified, and he's just like, and he's just gasped, like, oh my god. I
Yeah,
wonder
it's
how.
so
I
good.
always wonder with those scenes, how many times did they have to film that? Because sometimes it could be a one and done. I
Hmm.
can't imagine doing that scene more than once a day though.
Yeah.
like,
Well, like,
like I can't imagine getting to that emotional level and then being like, yeah, let's take 10 and go again. Like,
yeah, it honestly depends on the actor
I
because like
guess.
it's hard, but like when we were filming Change, we did like 15 takes of the crying
Oh,
scene.
really?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so like and she kept doing it straight off, but I yeah, it's definitely hard though. Like
And
I
it's also that wasn't a short scene either.
no.
That was a very long. That was like a 10-minute scene by
Mhm.
itself. And so like, yeah, I think this is a movie to show, like, this is one of just the many movies to show like Tom Hanks is a very well versed actor. This is a
Yeah.
very serious role for him, and like I would recommend it just for him.
Mhm.
But obviously we have to talk about, and I'm going to nah,
But yeah, like Tom Hanks,
yeah,
he was just incredible.
yeah,
Like as an actor, I am incredibly amazed by his talent. Like it is incredibly hard to continue to stay in that emotional state as an actor. Like and to be safe as well. Like you can be in that emotional state, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're safe. Like you it just takes so much specificity and so much craft. It was incredible, and not even Tom Hanks, like every single other actor in there,
yeah.
I didn't have a single complaint about acting throughout the
Yeah,
entire
like
movie.
the four pirates, especially Muse,
Oh yeah.
they all were played. They were all distinct from each other.
Mhm.
What like obviously you could they all had different forms of breaking.
Mhm.
Um, they all felt like real, like these like it's like whatever information they were able to gather about these people, like it felt like they were able to take it and make them their own, make them
Yeah.
their characters. And it's just
Yeah.
like
And even the crew.
obviously, yeah, oh yeah,
Like the crew had all their own different personalities. Every
yeah,
single one of them, you know?
mm-hmm,
It was incredible.
mm-hmm,
Acting was just solid. I did want to bring up something though. So when he's writing the note to his wife
yeah,
and the lifeboat, like the whole time he has kept his cool, he's kept his calm. He except for the part where he like pushed him out, but that was to get away. Like he was still calm and under control. But like but the whole time he's kept his cool around these guys, pushing him around,
because
making fun of him.
he
But then like he's writing his final manifesto to his wife and
yeah,
family, and then he rips it away. And like that moment right there, that was like, oh, he just took away his last moments to his wife and kids, and that was like the last straw for him. Like he was like, you can take away my life, you can take away everything from me, do not take away my last words to my family, you know?
yeah, and it's just like it's crazy to think because to think that like like the last portion of that entire thing that they had that listening device,
Hmm.
and like to be the people listening in on that shit, like obviously
Oh yeah.
they're trained military members, but like I can't ever get 100% easy to be like, okay, well there's just this, and it's like they just issued a threat, and it's like what the crap,
Yeah.
and a very real by the book, like constantly checking in, being like, we want to hear from the captain, we want to hear from the captain.
Well, the government, if this movie doesn't prove that the government knows everything, then I don't know what will.
Oh yeah, the
Because like
fact
they were
that
able to find backstories on the other four pirates, their whole
that
tribe.
that was so crazy to me,
Mhm.
because like they must have been under the military's radar, the
Mhm.
Navy's radar for some time for them to get the information. Just
Yeah.
like we're gonna figure it out, and then they said that earlier in the movie, and I was just like, okay, maybe they're gonna get some information, maybe they'll find out.
And then they find out everything about
and it's
them.
just like they have pictures, and I was like, holy crap!
Yeah.
It's just like
Government knows everything, okay? Government's listening in on this. Our FBI agents are probably bored out of their minds listening to us talking about this. but you know.
Except for the one that's a huge Tom Hanks fan.
Yeah, he's like, they're finally talking about
Finally.
it. Yeah, acting solid.
On par.
20 out of
Beyond
10.
par.
Acting
Home.
incredible. So I wanted to bring up sound and music. You mentioned while they were like riding out from their country, and all of a sudden, like with their boats, and it plays the Pirates of the Caribbean music. We looked it up. No one has done it,
Yeah.
but so that means we need to do it.
We need to do it. We need to instill the Pirates of the Caribbean theme to this movie.
Mm-hmm. Just anyway, no, music was good. It was very simple.
It was very subtle.
And it was very tension building.
Yeah.
You know?
It was subtle enough to where, like, a lot of times you didn't even notice it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what tension music does.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what this movie needed. It needed the story and the action on screen to tell the story with any of the what you would consider even dead space, and there really wasn't dead space.
Yeah.
Subverted by some of this very subtle music, and it's just like, in the like again, I haven't been as emotional for a climax of a movie in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the whole scene where they're just all screaming and they're just like, the snipers, he's blindfolded, and the music took that to another level.
Well, and then like at the exact moment where he was like, stop, and then it pushed the guy. He was like, stop towing.
The music stopped.
And the music stopped too. And it pushed the guy a little bit forward, and he was like, execute. Boom. And then it went into like resolution music, you know?
Yeah.
No.
It waited I think it waited for him to start freaking out about the blood and stuff. And
I think it even waited for him
the Navy SEAL to show up?
For him to get on the ship.
Maybe.
Because like
I'll
it
have
was
to rewatch that scene,
dead silent. And it was just such good sound design.
Because that portrays...
That was the end of the tension.
That portrays what he was hearing.
Yeah.
Like for who knows how long we've had these four men bickering in front of him, and then occasionally on the radio happening, and then the waves and stuff like that. Then the tow line stops, the main momentum basically stops, and the loud climax of screaming suddenly ends, and he's just like, what is going on? And that would be what to him that would be dead silence, even though there's the ocean and ships and stuff like that. To him, it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was very, very good sound design. So with the gore makeup, I know it made all three of us squirm with the makeup on his foot. Oh yeah, it was good. It was good
like he stepped on makeup. Like when they're like, yeah, we need to get some guys to get a bottle, and I was just like, okay, and it looks like they got like a whole like 6-rack of fucking Budweiser bottles or some shit. They broke it, and he steps on there, and it's not just one or two. His entire foot
is just
glass.
Jacked. Also, Musse's hand. That was didn't really see a lot of that.
Yeah, but you saw it in his physicality. You could tell that he had both lost a good amount of blood and that he was getting sick from it. And like it's just like immediately, because I'm not trying to generalize their people, but these specific people in this movie from that, they weren't necessarily clean people.
Yeah.
Like they
third world countries.
They didn't live in a very clean place. They themselves were physically not very clean. They had been out on sea for at least a couple of days tracking the boat. And so like immediately it was just like there's the pain of it actually being in the body, and the look of it, you could tell there's like raw flesh showing and blood. And it's like, oh, I'm just like, no, why?
It was, makeup was really, really good.
Yeah.
I think we have, period and dialogue, it was the time. It was...
Yeah.
I want to talk... The Boston accent, I don't think it was a Boston accent.
I'm not sure. I have to look up to see where Captain Phillips came from. Definitely Tom Hanks put a unique accent on it, because obviously Tom Hanks himself has a unique and very memorable voice, with just like, the only thing I could say is like it's nasally without it actually being nasally, if that makes sense. Like you hear his voice and it's like, okay, yeah, that's Tom Hanks. And then he gives like that's pertinent in any accent that he's done in any of his shows. But obviously,
He had a Boston accent.
yeah, and I could hear something Boston area like,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, like I think it worked. It wasn't crazy and over the top. I like Zach and I always make fun of fucking Dick Van Dyke
Mm-hmm.
in Mary Poppins, where literally Dick Van Dyke himself says it was an awful accent.
Yeah, and Captain Phillips was from Massachusetts,
Yeah,
so it makes
and
sense.
so that added to give the character that goes back to acting. I
Oh
think
yeah,
where it's
yeah.
just very much like, yeah, this character is from Boston.
Mm-hmm. And he probably listened to him. Like, there's pictures of them standing side by side
Oh
together.
yeah,
So
and
he's probably
and
like,
if he's
listen to how he talked.
saying do a Boston accent is actually what a lot of people worldwide know.
Yeah.
Like that a Boston accent is a lot of times what a lot of people like. You're if you're going to do an American accent, it's one of like 4 or 5 accents,
Uh,
and Boston's one of them, or like do something from New York or from the Deep South or something like that.
yeah, yeah. But yeah. Location and set. It was on ships. It was very. This movie was a very. It wanted to put you into the moment.
Yeah,
It wanted to put you into the story, and I think it succeeded.
yeah, 100%. I don't really have anything else to add to that because it goes back to what we were saying about the camera. The choice to make that camera mobile for the
Mm-hmm.
entirety of the movie made it feel even more like you were a person on the boat. You were a person
Mm-hmm.
on the water.
Yeah, and it really succeeded in all aspects of the movie. I didn't have any complaints about the movie. Um, Solid 10 out of 10 movie. So with that, I'm gonna give this movie an S rank. Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna give it an
This
S rank.
this honestly, this movie has left a lasting impression in my brain. I think I'm going to agree.
Yep.
I think the podcast where we have the least amount of people
to disagree.
I to be honestly, this movie, it was just like it promised something, it delivered upon it,
Mm-hmm.
it not only checked every single box, it overflowed, it filled those boxes
It was
so
really
well.
satisfying. It was there was like obviously with the slight cinematography note that we had,
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of a
but that's
nitpicky thing.
yeah, and like the
And also one thing, but I understand why they chose to do it. At the very end, I very much wanted it to show a scene where he goes back to his wife.
yeah,
But
they might have filmed it, but they might have just cut it out.
But leaving it like that, I think was still very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think either way, I would have been completely fine with it. Leaving it like
Yeah,
he's okay.
yeah,
He's going to be okay. And then they gave a little bit of tidbit of information at the end where a little over a year later he went back into the ocean, and I'm just like, why on earth?
yeah.
If that happened to me, I would have worked at fucking like a supermarket in my hometown and like kept 3 guns on me at all times. Like,
Yeah, no, really good movie, solid S ranking.
yeah, S.
It's it's a movie that I would hope to hopefully make a movie like this in the future, where it's just all across the board,
Mm-hmm.
basically perfect. Um, yeah. So, I think that concludes our podcast. Our next podcast is going to be the sequel to this movie, to Captain to Phillips. No, Captain Phillips. This time it's personal. um, no, we don't know what we're doing next, but yeah. Thanks for listening, you guys. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at 410 Horsemen. Again, we have 3 new horror slash Halloween shorts that came out in November. Look out for the life of I'm gonna call it Life of a Pie, so that people don't confuse it with Life of Pi. But anyway, thank you for listening,
Don't sue
guys.
us, Jonah.
Please, yeah, don't sue us, Jonah. Now you get distracted too easily. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening, you guys. Please Be kind, be safe, don't get abducted by pirates. Thanks for listening, you guys. Have a good day, night, whatever time you're listening to this. Thank you.